Sorry, officer. Was I going a little fast? I find going for a drive late at night clears the head sometimes, don't you? Have I been drinking? Absolutely not. But you can breathalyze me if you like.
That was when she saw the other pair of headlights coming in the opposite direction towards her.
It's getting like bloody Piccadilly Circus around here,
she muttered wryly to herself. So much for the solitude of the moors at night. The car behind her must have been going a lot faster than she thought, because it was suddenly right on her tail. She frowned and put her foot down to put a bit of distance between them again as the road straightened. But the other driver instantly matched her, his lights now filling her rear view.
What's he fucking playing at? She thought.
But she wasn't worried. She couldn't see what kind of car it was, but she knew she had enough under the bonnet, together with a local's knowledge of every twist and turn in the road ahead, to outrun it if she had to. It was only when she saw the other pair of headlights coming straight for her down the middle of the road that she felt the first beginnings of panic. She nudged the wheel, hugging the edge of the road as close as she could and inviting him to move over. But instead, he moved further over to her side, making a collision inevitable. She only had seconds, but she waited until the very last moment to wrench the steering wheel to the right, her heart in her mouth as she put her foot down even further to try and keep her wheels on the road. But instead of letting her past, the other driver swung back into his lane, meaning she had no choice but to continue the turn. She heard the tyres screaming as they left the tarmac, suspended in mid-air for a moment, before settling with a crunch onto the turf. Then the whole car started bouncing crazily over ruts and ditches as it careened down an incline, the headlights tracing a crazy stroboscopic light show against the blackness. She braced herself, the sickening feeling of the car being tossed around by forces out of her control making her gasp. She saw the boulder a split second before she hit it, a solid shape suddenly looming at her out of the darkness. Then felt, rather than heard, the crash, an irresistible force lifting her out of her seat and smashing her head and shoulders against the roof of the car as it continued spinning through the air. Time stopped. She felt herself revolving in slow motion, and then nothing. The car she'd been trying to avoid had come to a stop 100 yards or so beyond the point where she'd left the road. Slowly it reversed back until it was alongside the second car. Two men got out. They were dressed in dark clothing and both wore black driving gloves. One was short and thick-set, with close-cropped grey hair and a fleshy face. The other was taller, his jacket hanging off his bony frame. With a mop of dark hair and sculpted cheekbones, he would have been handsome if it wasn't for the long scar that bisected his cheek and tugged at the corner of his mouth, giving him a permanent sneer.
"Nice job,"
said the short man. The tall man shrugged.
"She had some balls, I'll give her that. I thought she was going to run me off the fucking road."
The short man chuckled, pulling a small torch out of his pocket.
"Better go and make sure, though."
Together they followed the helter-skelter route she'd taken down the slope. The car was lying on its roof, one headlight still casting a mournful beam into the night. As they approached, they could hear the ticking of the engine as it cooled in the night air. The passenger door was open and hanging off its hinges. The short man leaned in carefully and played the torch around the interior.
"She dead?"
the tall man asked.
"Looks like it,"
the short man said after a few moments. The tall man took a step closer and peered in. She was hanging upside down like a puppet whose strings had been cut, her face dripping blood onto the roof.
"Looks like ain't good enough though, is it?"
the tall man said.
"Christ almighty, give me a fucking chance, will you?"
the short man replied. The tall man stood back to give him room so he could shine the torch into what was left of the woman's face. Bloody bubbles formed between her lips, and a sound emerged halfway between a moan and a whisper. The short man strained to hear. Papa? Puppy? Not quite dead then. It would probably only be a matter of minutes, but in his experience it was best to be certain. Belt and braces, that was his motto. Slowly he reached forward until he was able to cup her jaw in one hand. He put one knee down to brace himself, then reached his other hand behind her head as far as he could, and took a firm grasp of her hair.
"Right then," he said.
With a quick movement, he rotated her skull as if he were trying to open a giant jar of pickles. Both men heard the crack.
"There you go."
He eased himself backwards out of the car, trying not to brush his clothing against the seat.